Plus, he has some power.
Possibly.
Yeah.
He did this year.
Right. So, yeah, I just don't see these names out here that, like, yes, what I like the Pirates to upgrade, shortstop, second base over Jordy Mercer or Jay and even Kramer and Newman. Yes, like if there was a guy that was, a good fielder and a good bat, sign me up. I'd be all for it. But these names, besides Manny Machado, which is a pipe dream, doesn't look very good. So what do you do?
That's just the problem. Like, and the names you bring up, like, sure, there's Brian Dozier. That's a household name. Everyone knows him. He's coming, 3 years removed from 40 home runs. But the problem is, his season this year was just trash. That's the best way to put it. And I know some people have. Well, I shouldn't say people have said. I mean, he said it. Like he's had a shoulder injury this year, so you can maybe play that in. But it's like that's still risk. Do you really want to invest into a guy who's coming off the worst season ever, who, even though last year wasn't horrible, it's still a downward trend. Like he's not trending in the right direction, and then had this season, there's an injury, and he's going to be 32. Am I really going to invest my money into that? I don't think so. That's a problem. Like the guys that are out there are just underwhelming guys, or they're very high risk. I mean, like Daniel Murphy's another example. Yeah. Like sure, he has the bat, he's shown it again, but is he really just like Neil Walker, but it's a better bat? Like, can you really trust him to be out there? I don't know. He's going to be injured. He's not going to play well defensively. Jose Iglesias out there. Sure, he's great with a glove, but he's terrible with a bat. So that's still a liability in some sense. Like, there's no one out there that I can just trust and say, okay, if we have to upgrade the middle infielder, we get this guy and that guy, and boom, we're a playoff team. I don't feel that. I feel if we get Brian Dozier, we could be, and then it's like we spend all this money and resources to get him, and we still might not be.
Yeah, and here's the other problem. So I think everybody is in agreement that the Pirates need to upgrade the offense. They need a bat. Like, they need somebody that can, either hit or just hit for power. Like, they need to upgrade the lineup. But the problem with that is the only really two openings, going into 2019 are in that middle infield. And like we just mentioned, there's really not a name out there that can do both. You have Jose Iglesias, who he's a good glove, but his bat stinks. You have Jordy Mercer, who can't really do both. We just mentioned Dozier. These guys are older, or they're aging, or they've come down. So that's the second base and shortstop is that like obvious spot to upgrade the offense, but there's just the names aren't out there. So
yeah, I mean,
maybe they go to the trade market.
How pirate is this? Like this is the year that of course, like we need some middle infielders, and there's nothing out there.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe you look to the trade market for that. I mean, I think at this point, it's pretty obvious given that you're not rolling with Newman at shortstop next year. At least to start the year.
That's just the thing, He
looks so bad.
You assume so. I don't feel comfortable. We've said this numerous times. I don't feel comfortable with it, but is there any clear-cut upgrade that you're willing to do it? I mean, I'm sure, even if Brian Dozier isn't Brian Dozier, like I'm sure he's going to be better, but like to what degree? Right. Like do you go out there and spend $15 million more for this season to get a Brian Dozier when he's marginally better than them, when you can allocate those resources to something else to really get you better?
Right.
That's that's just the thing.
Yeah, and then you get into with guys like Dozier, maybe would they sign a 1-year deal to try to regain some value and hit the market the next year? Maybe something like that would make sense until Newman or Kramer were ready. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's not good at shortstop and second base, and I mean even look at first base. I mean obviously you're not going to replace Josh Bell. Like Josh Bell is going to be the first baseman next year, but even it's not like there's a first baseman that hits 40 some home runs available. Like it's a lot of
maybe that's Daniel Murphy actually.
Well, it's true.
Like maybe the team that signs him as a first baseman and not even a second baseman, because realistically that's his position going forward in my mind.
Right, but it's a lot of old guys. Steve Pearce is going to be available. 36-year-old Steven Pearce, which DiNardo, isn't that crazy to think about?
It is, but we didn't like 27-year-old Steven Pierce. So why invest in 36-year-old Steven Pierce?
Good point.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, man. It's the only place now we've talked about third base. Though the names there aren't any much better. Now there's Josh Donaldson. You don't know what kind of deal he's going to get. He looked terrible in the playoffs, pretty much down the stretch with Cleveland. So that didn't really work out. So
yeah, but I don't know if he really did though either. I know the numbers support that he wasn't, but he was killing the ball.
Oh, was he? I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just looking at the numbers.
You look at his exit velocity and everything. Yeah, there's a lot of bad luck.
All right, well there you
there
go.
was a lot of shots right to the wall.
Maybe
coming off injury.
Then.
Like to me, I know we talked about this. Like coming off the injury and such. Like what would his value be this year if that's something that the Pirates could sneak in and afford or such. But I don't know. Seeing how he looked, I feel like he's going to get that contract.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. And besides Donaldson and Machado, who would probably is in that discussion at third. I mean, it's just, look at these.
Eduardo Escobar again. He slides in there.
Look at these names: Pablo Sandoval, Luis Valbuena, Jose Reyes, Jed Lowry. Now Jed Lowry, I mean, yeah, but he's 35. Chase Headley, Ryan Flaherty, Asdrubal Cabrera, Adrian Beltre, 40-year-old Adrian Beltre. Yeah, it's terrible, man.
It's funny to talk about age, right? Like Steve Pierce, you're shocked that he's 36. How about Will Middlebrooks is only 30? Like, doesn't he seem like he should be like 36 now too or something?
Right. Middlebrooks.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Will Middlebrooks is also available, Ryan.
I was going to say, is he in the Mexican League yet?
He was with Philly this year.
There you go.
How about that?
So,
yeah, it's nothing. I mean, there's definitely a star, Josh Donaldson. Edward Escobar is a nice plan B. But right, like after that, it's not much either. So, I mean, which is to say, like, at least we do have Colin Moran. He's safe. The risk reward, right, is that Jung Ho Gung. He could be that impact player that you have at third base. Like the thing about Moran is at least he's not a black hole like potentially Kevin Newman might be. Kevin Kramer might be.
Right.
I think like with Moran, you're safe there, right? It's a safe stay. He's not going to really hurt your team, but he's not that player that's going to excel you to make a playoff run. So hopefully that's Gung.
Yeah, and for Eduardo Escobar makes so much sense because he is versatile and he can play all. So, the last year he played third, shortstop, and second. Other years he's played, he caught one year apparently. He played outfield. He played all over. He's got a pretty good bat. He's kind of a late bloomer, coming around with some power. But that's the thing. Like, if you sign Escobar, you're not necessarily saying, okay, Escobar's our shortstop. If Newman comes up and he starts playing well, you could move Escobar to second, or you could play him at third. Like, you can move him around, and that way it gives you that flexibility where if you go sign Jose Iglesias, like, he's only playing shortstop,
Right, exactly. And that's where I was leading to, like, where his value comes in. Like, I think that's really the appeal to his value because you can play him. Like, an injury happens, you have something to shift over. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to try to fit this, like, square into a circle plug, Right. Like, you can go and find that square because this guy can fit in wherever you need that to be. So,
exactly.
I do like that. Like, if Moran for some reason falls off or something happens, like, you could go ahead and plug him in there and work something else out if that's, how your roster is constructed. So, yeah, I mean, I do like that. I do like that value from him and what he brings. He is a solid player right now.
Yeah, and like I said, he was a late bloomer, but he also really didn't get a shot. Like, his first full season really in the majors, he was, age 25. And then even that wasn't really a full-time starter. He
was just a doubles machine this year.
Yeah, he had a pretty good 2015. He had 31 doubles, 12 home runs. And then 2016, 105 games, was kind of that utility guy again. Wasn't very good. 2017, 21 home runs. And then this year, yeah, like you said, 48 doubles, 23 home runs between the Twins and the Diamondbacks. So, yeah, he was pretty good. And he'll be 30, so it's like, it'll be interesting to see what kind of deals these guys get because, he's never really, I mean, the most money he's made in a year was this past year. He made $4.8 million, so he hasn't really gotten paid. So So we'll see.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. So you have a little bit of age on his side. He's 30, unlike like Dozier will be 32 or such. So he's not as old. And right, even though he's had a good season, he hasn't had historically great numbers. So maybe there is a little value in there. Maybe the trust factor isn't so much there. So people are gonna maybe not offer him the big contract. I don't know, a 4-year, $50 million, right? That could be feasible. Yeah. Still a lot of money for him,
right?
But that could be that peak. So if you can maybe slide in and get some more value and less than that, I mean, that's something the Pirates could afford. But still, that's still $13 million,
right? But and that's the thing. If they do sign it, it's not like you're signing Brian Dozier, where it's he can only play second base. You could sign Escobar, put him at second this year, and then let's say Kramer comes up and he's doing a lot better than he did in September. Okay, Kramer plays second, and you put Escobar at shortstop or third base or something. So you can move him around. So yeah, that obviously makes sense. Now I don't know how much of a upgrade to the. I mean, obviously that would be an upgrade from what Mercer and Jay did with the bat last year, but. I just everybody's saying basically, oh, they need a bat. Well, there's not that name out there that's going to just drop in and be a 40 home run guy. I mean, unless you're going and getting Harper or Machado, but that's not happening. So my thing is, and I brought this up a couple weeks ago, DiNardo. My thing is, okay, so if you're not really going to, maybe you go get an Escobar, or maybe you go get a smaller piece or two, or an outfielder while Polanco's, getting healthy. Maybe you go spend that money, the extra money you have, on adding to a strength, adding to the bullpen. I think the rotation is pretty much set. I mean, unless you're dropping I don't know, unless Max Scherzer suddenly comes available and wants to play in Pittsburgh for some reason for a team-friendly deal. Then that, you know what I mean? An ace just isn't dropping out of nowhere. But I think with
Sure.
But I think with Tyone, Archer, Trevor Williams, the second half he had, you have Musgrove, you have Nova, which you're probably holding on to at this point, and then you have Keller, not too far behind. So I think the rotation is pretty much set. Now, they'll pick up, I'm sure, their projects that they always do. Somebody on a no risk deal. But I think there's a lot of relievers out there, DiNardo, and I know your big thing, and I was usually with you, was, don't spend on relievers. But I think that is changing a bit, because I think what we're seeing in these playoffs especially is that, who knows in 5 years if we're even going to have names, we're even going to have designations for pitchers like bullpen arms and starters. It might just be a guy that can go 3-4 innings, 2-3 innings. Because if you have, let's say you have Musgrove in the rotation. Musgrove goes 5 innings, boom, good. We take him out, and then we bring him in. We bring in another guy, 2-3 inning guy, and then you can bring in another 2 inning guy, and then boom. I feel like these relievers, all the positions are changing. So maybe you don't spend that big money on starting pitching, not that the Pirates do, but maybe you spend it on not necessarily a closer or a back of the end guy, but these middle relief guys like an Andrew Miller and an Archie Bradley and a Josh Hader. You spend it on those guys that can go multiple innings, and they can be an asset, especially in that middle of the game, especially if teams are, starters aren't going to face the third time through the order a lot more in the future. So I think you go through some of these relievers, and I'm not saying go spend a deal like Melancon got or something, but that, honestly, the deal that Melancon got, to me, that makes more sense giving it to a guy like Hader or Archie Bradley. Not that these guys are available, but you get the point. But it makes more sense to me spending it on those guys, let alone a closer. Plus, it also helps that the Pirates have Vasquez already.
It does, right?
Well,
I think what you're saying is true. Although, two things are true. I think that this team might be wise to not invest all that much into middle infielders because there's not a whole lot there.
Right.
I'm getting at, why invest $15 million in a Brian Dozier if he's going to give you $4 million worth of value, or just be slightly above something else that's going to be there for much cheaper. So maybe that's not the route to go. I mean, maybe getting a Jose Iglesias makes sense because I don't think he's going to be a ton of money. I think it'll be more of a short-term deal. I don't think anyone's going to spend 4 or 5 years on Jose Iglesias, especially if he's if his production comes from the glove, that's going to go away soon. So I don't think anyone's going to give him like a long-term deal because he's not going to be a great defender as he ages. So like I think the Pirates can maybe slide away with a 2-year deal.